Hi Teddy, ¿cómo estás? La primera pregunta que te quería hacer era, ¿cómo te iniciaste en los cómics y cuáles fueron tus primeras influencias?
My love for comics began when I was a kid, just like anybody. You start by reading, you can't read, so you start reading pictures. They're easy. It's a language that's easy, what you call it, accessible when you can't read words. So it's very appealing. So I started reading Donald Duck, Asterix comics, what you call it. A bunch of French, Belgian comics that were published here in Denmark. And then, what you call it, as I grew, as I got to learn to read words, uh, uh, I was very lucky that I grew up in a period where the local library, whoever was in charge at that library, was just buying all sort of comics. There was a bunch of comics, European comics that were published in in Danish, translated. But he also imported and made available at the library a bunch of French books that weren't published yet in Danish. He also bought a bunch of American books in all sort of stuff. So I started when I was like when I grew up to be like 12 years old. Suddenly they had what was it called, Slow Death by Richie Corben, a lot of bunch of underground comics that he must have bought and then got bound into these volumes of wonderful comics. Um, a bunch of lovely French books, a bunch of American not underground comics. It was just a childhood with so exposed to so many genres of comics, which was wonderful. It's I couldn't ask for. I've never found out who the librarian was. I should actually seek him up or her, but it was somebody clearly with a big passion for comics, and I'm eternal grateful for what that person was bringing to my attention.
Perfecto. Superman La Bomba La Paz fue la primera vez que un equipo europeo de dibujantes y guionistas se hace cargo de una aventura del hombre acero. ¿Qué nos puede decir de este proyecto?
Well, Superman and the Peacemonger or Peace Bomb or whatever the proper title would be was at a period where Superman was supposed to had a 50-year anniversary, and DC Comics decided to say to all the publishers all over the world to say, give it a shot, give us your take on Superman. We're all on for letting you do that. Um, and normally they would publish only the licensed Superman, but here they were giving the people the space to do something else. Um, so a local publisher was asking me and a Danish writer if we wanted to do a take on this. And of course, I didn't know how to draw Superman the way, even though I'd grown up reading all sorts of Superman comics in Neil Adams and what you call Kurt Swan, etc., etc. I didn't know how to draw the American style, so what you call it, I set out to draw my style, uh, and I think DC had this idea that they would what you call it give people the task or the freedom to do what they wanted. Um, but they had this idea most likely that nobody would ever do it. And we were the only country actually that ever, what you call it, took it up. Um, so, what you call it, and they just said yes to it once they started seeing, what you call it, drawings. I had one correction that I needed to do because I had just drawn these sloppy S's. I hadn't really figured out how to draw the proper Superman S. And that was the one that they asked me to go in and correct afterwards. They didn't care about that I was making him much more cartoony or that it was so far from their Superman. They just wanted the S to be proper because that was their trademark, of course. So I had to go in and do all the little S's so they were proper. So now I know how to draw the Superman S properly.
Bien, junto a Mark Helpe te tocó ilustrar el arco de las benévolas de Satma. ¿Qué crees que pudo aportar su estilo a esa saga y por qué crees que hay gente que criticó ese estilo justamente que se lo usaran para esa historia?
Well, what you call it, when I did a comic after after I'd done Superman, I was asked by the same publisher, and the same editor. He instigated to do Tarzan. He had bought Semic Press, Semic, corporation had bought the rights to do Tarzan comics, and so me and another Danish illustrator, Peter Snybjerg, we both illustrated some Tarzan comics for him, intended for the American market. And at the same time, Henning, who was the editor at it, he hired Mark Wheatley and Mark Hempel to draw a bunch and write a bunch of Tarzan comics. I don't think they were ever published because the whole project closed down after a bit. But that was my first connection to Mark Hempel. And then later on, I was asked to do that issue 64 of Sandman to sort of fit into the Mark Hempel style. I think Sandman was a comic at that point that was a very one of the few comics where people had the artistic freedom to do their take on Sandman, and people were taking that freedom on. And I try to do the same, of course, try to make my issue fit in with Mark's story, but at the same time, or not Mark's story, Mark's art, so it wouldn't stand out too much. It would sort of fit in and still be part of that story. And how people take it, it's always beyond what you. I mean, it's beyond how is anything received. It's like you try your best, and then you hope that it hits the nerve at some readers. Or I assume it's the same for any author or any cinema director, that they have an idea for how it should be done, and then you try your best, and then you just hope that people will like what you've done, or get some sort of kick out of seeing something that maybe they didn't expect. I've always made a big virtue out of never try to fit into some sort of a style, because never try to, if you can say that, give the readers what they want, because I have this old saying that the reader already knows this. So if you're just repeating what they want, I mean, you've seen it many times. People musicians do an album, and then people kind of want the same album for their second album. They want it to be exactly the same, but at the same time, they get slacked for or punished for doing exactly the same album. So they have to do something new. And if they do something way too new, then people go, oh, but it's not like the former one. So sometimes it's just taking the chances and hope that you can find the readers all the same. That's at least the intention all the time. So how they received Mark Hempel's Sandman and my issue, it's hard to find out how to take it.
Bien, perfecto. ¿Cómo surgió la Casa de los Secretos? ¿Qué es lo que hablaron con Steve Seagle? ¿Y en qué se inspiraban para crear al personaje de Rey? Okay. No.
Well, how Secret came about, I met Steve at San Diego Comic-Con, And he was part of this group of people, of artists that I hung around with at that point. Matt Wagner was one of them, and Matt and Steve had done stuff together. Mike Allred was also part of that. James Robinson was also part of that. And then we met, and it was such a lovely, gentle soul. And I had read his old comic that he had done with Tim Sale called Amazon. And I loved that Tim's art and Steve's writing had some sort of European feel to it. It was un-American, at least. So it appealed to me immediately. So when I found out that it was Steve who was the writer, and he was standing right there, then we immediately started talking. And then we found out we had a mutual interest in what you call storytelling, in the sense that if you tell a story, you can tell a story in many ways. You can tell it from A to B, once upon a time, and then it goes, and then they lived happily ever after. A story that just goes straight out. But you could also tell a story in fragments. Some stories, of course. So you start with P, and then you go back to B, and then you progress as you move along, and then the reader is sort of figuring out what's going on as they move along in the story. There's some stories that work like that, and we both had an interest in that. So that's how we started. So we just started talking about what we liked of filmmakers and comic books and books and writing. And then we started talking about what we should do. And then Steve had an idea for House of Secrets, which was this: if you thought of the human being as a what you call it, a house, a structure, then we had this idea that every human being has some sort of secrets that they carry within their house, their body, and that was sort of the starting point to that was at least our main driver in this story. And then Steve wrote the character Rain, and I started drawing her, and it was in this period where it was the end of grunge, but we wanted it to take place around that period. We wanted her to be a grungy, grumpy character. It sort of fitted with that rebellion that she was, that resistant woman. So so we chose her in that period.
Bien. Si bien La Casa de los Secretos es un cómic de terror, se introdujeron muchos temas como el abuso, el suicidio, los chicos que se escapan de la casa, el maltrato infantil, las drogas, todas problemáticas adolescentes. Por qué consideraron meter todos estos temas?
It's not something that I, what you call it, had conversations with Steve about, that we should we take on subjects like this. I think those were subjects that were very important for Steve to bring into it. This human level of stories, this human interaction, instead of just being superhero, supernatural, then these elements of proper human, proper humanistic stories has always been the driving force to what Steve has done, and he's so brilliant at it. And you can sort of feel, you can see that that's a line that goes through what you call it. It's a Bird that we did, Genius, another book we did. It's always been this human interacting and human problems and everyday issues. And that's also where he pulls off a lot of inspiration, at least for the stories that we've done together. It's, but it wasn't a conversation we sat down and said, no, we need to do something about child abuse. We need to do something about this. These were just stories that I think were important for Steve to, write about. Then we always had this idea that, to make stuff challenging for me. I would always try to say, no, I'll approach this art-wise in a different way. We were trying to constantly push one another in writing and art, how words and images should work together, and storytelling in that sense.
¿Cómo fue la experiencia de actuar, de ser autor integral en el Cuaderno Rojo y qué te llevó a hacer la historia la polémica historia del pintor Johann Vermeer y qué pudiste averiguar de los 35 cuadros que se le atribuyen a él?
Well, the whole Red Diary started with, it was a French publisher, Jean Vaquet, from Soleil, French Delcourt now. I think it's called Delcourt Soleil now. He approached me and asked if I would like to do a story for them. And I had just started this story for myself that I had done for a Danish publisher, a magazine that was in the Sunday paper of a Danish newspaper. They would publish this lovely printed little magazine with special articles in on glossy paper, etc. And we did the first, I think, 6 pages or something, or 8 pages. I had done that, and they had started up the magazine, and then it was Easter. And then when everybody returned from Easter, then the newspaper decided to close the magazine. So they just did 1 issue, but that was supposed to be this ongoing series. So I had started up this story. So when Sean approached me, he said, "But I already had this story that I'm in the middle of doing." And the idea behind that was something I had read, an interview or an article about fraud art, fake art. And it just, I thought it was interesting. It was somebody who had, I can't remember his name, but it was some Dutch artist who had, done a lot of fakes, a lot of Matisse fakes, a lot of Van Gogh fakes, etc., etc. And when this was finally revealed that he had done all these fakes, some of these were hanging on big museums in Europe, and suddenly, from one day to the next day, they lost value. They had no interest whatsoever. So people had been admiring these pieces of art, and then suddenly, because they had no history behind them, they were not painted by Picasso or Matisse. They were painted by some Dutch dude who who had just done these fake paintings. And I thought it was interesting that is it such a big part of of art, is that the history behind it. And then I've always had this interest in biographies. I've read tons of biographies about art and artists. And then it just was natural to bring in a biographer into this whole story, and then see what I could, come up with. And then I'm not sure if any of you read any of the we did an American version of it as well, with Steve, who rewrote it. Did you read that one? Again, Steve and me, we did to play with this storytelling. So I had done this for the French publisher, and it was published in Spanish and a few other languages. And then Steve wanted it to be published in English. So I said, well, I have my old English script here. And then it was like, no, let's play. Let's do have fun. So we made this this deal that said if he would receive my French book, or Danish book, I think it was, a French book. And then we made this pact that says if there was a year or a city name or a person's name in the caption, he had to keep that. Otherwise he would guess what the speech balloon was saying. So he he started by saying he took the first caption, and then he said, well, this word looks like, I'm pretty sure that that's this word, and this word is probably this word. And then he ended up with some words that he thought were these English words, and then he took the rest and Google translated those, and then he put them into that sentence, and that came up as some sort of really weird sentence. So then he had to translate that, and then he made that his jump into his story. So then what we did was we published from Image Comics. We published this double book. So it has two different covers. So if you start, it all depends on when you open or where you open the book, but you can open it from one side, then it's maybe my story that you open, and then you read the full story. And then there's this little essay in the middle. And then if you flip the book, you get the same art, but the title is called not Red Diary, but the Red reading.
Read.
And then you get then you get Steve's story. And it's two different stories, but it's the same art completely, just as an experiment.
Bien. En Sandman Midnight Theater te tocó ilustrar el encuentro entre Dream, sueño, y el Sandman de la Edad de Oro. ¿En qué te inspiraste para crear esas ilustraciones tan oscuras y pictóricas?
Well, it was Matt Wagner and Neil Gaiman that thought that they would, or had this idea that they would do they had this idea that they would like to do something together, and then Matt wrote. They did it together, and then Matt wrote a script based on that, and I did the art. And I had this idea that I wanted the art to be. It was taking place in 1939, and I had this idea that people's mindset of 1939 is black and white pictures, photos, etc., etc. So I chose to do the tones in these muted tones, gray, blue, gray, brown, but simply to try to see if I could best way, hopefully lead the reader into that frame of mind. That was the intention. So.
Bien. ¿Qué es lo que más te gusta de trabajar con Steven Seagal?
I think It's a Bird is probably our proudest book. I think that was and House of Secrets is also It's always fun to experiment with Steve, but I think I'm very proud of what we did with It's a Bird. It was a story that Steve was coming up with as he was visiting me here, and then he went to the toilet, and then when he came out of the toilet, he was like, I have an idea for a book. And then he sat down and he told me the whole story, and I was like, yes, that's what we're doing. Then we persuaded Vertigo DC to go with our story, and they said yes. And I really enjoyed making that album. That was such a pleasure.
¿Estás trabajando en nuevos proyectos?
Yeah, I'm working on a new book with Jeff Lemire. I can't say much about it yet, except that it's going to be 600 pages at least. And then I've done a new book with Steve, which was finished. I finished my work, 2 years ago, and we're trying to find out what we should do with it. So maybe we'll do it as a Kickstarter. Maybe we'll approach what you call it, a publisher with it. We haven't approached anybody yet. We've just it was done as an experiment where what you call it, we were playing again with the story structures and finding a way how to inspire one another in storytelling. And that's basically what I have of projects, what you call it. But what I'll be working on for the next 2 years is 3 years is the book with Jeff Lemire, and I'm super enjoying it. I'll tell you more about it once I am allowed to tell more.
Bien. ¿Algún cómic o autor argentino que te guste o conozcas?
Yeah, Brescia. He's I don't know how it's pronounced. Is it Brescia or I know him. Who else? Carlos Nin. Is he? I think he's Argentinian or from Chile. Or who else do I know? I'm guaranteed I know a bunch of it. It's this. It's the same lovely school as the Spanish Italian schools. What you call it? It's this southern. I know it's what you call it, South America, and it's Southern Europe, but there's some similarities in your what you call it, wonderful. I can't explain exactly what it is. It's the same in literature. What you call I read a lot of what you call it, Spanish, Italian literature and South American literature, and there's this. It's a special way of approaching what you call it. Storytelling in both books and what you call it and comics. So yeah, bravo.
Bien. ¿Qué le gusta hacer a Teddy Kristiansen cuando está dibujando?
What do I like to do? I like to read a lot. I read all the time. What you call it? Yeah, mostly. Yeah, I read. I draw a lot all the time, and I go to the cinema. I love going to the cinema and concerts. Yeah, meeting friends, of course. But yeah, reading, going to concerts, eating food, proper, lovely food, and then yeah, enjoying myself.
Bien. ¿Algún mensaje que quieras mandar a tus fans argentinos o de Sudamérica?
Well, so happy to meet you, and hopefully you'll invite me to a South American conference at one point. I would love to go to South America and meet people in person, and hopefully you will enjoy the next bunch of books of comics that I have coming up. I'm very proud of it, of the books that are in the pipeline here.
Como te queríamos agradecer este tiempo que nos diste y poder conocerte y que vos nos conozcas a nosotros los argentinos, digamos, y saber que acá tenés fans y que te quieren y les gusta tu trabajo.
Oh, it's a pleasure, and thank you again for what you call it, asking me. It's fun.
Thank you. Gracias. Thank you. De
Well, thank
corazón.
you, and what you call it, yeah, yeah. I'm happy we got to do it. Great. Thank
Gracias.
you.
Chao.
Bye. Bye.